You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Broadcasting from the Blanchardstown Centre, this is Phoenix FM.
This is 92.5 Phoenix FM, community radio for Dublin 15.
Hey everybody, it's JB Jeremy Borash, and you are listening to Darrow O'Connor on the...
Welcome to the Wrestling Rewind, the only wrestling podcast by fans who don't hate wrestling.
All right, everybody. Thank you for bearing with us. If you're checking us out randomly on our YouTube or our Twitch, thanks for bearing with us. I've no idea if this is working or not, but we're gonna give it a go. And let us know in the chat if you can't hear us or you can't see us or whatever. This is the Wrestling Rewind. My name is Darrow O'Connor, and I'm joined on the line by the reigning, defending, undefeated champion, Martin Herty, who
undisputed
1-0. And you are legitimately a man with a better MMA record than CM Punk.
Undisputed. He hasn't even responded to the challenge. So.
He hasn't. What a coward. Yeah. What a coward.
Until he responds, he can't even dispute it. So I am undisputed.
Yeah, we are undisputed. Well, it's legitimate. You know, it's legit, man. So we're going to ride that into the freaking ground. But tonight we are testing this out because finally we can stream again, which is pretty cool. We haven't been able to stream. I checked since May 2021. There has not been a stream on this channel.
I am, despite the fact that I've been with you over a year, I am a streaming virgin as far as we're concerned.
Well, man, as I said, I was using a computer that was ancient, and to be fair, it did what it could do, even with RAM upgrades and hard drive upgrades and all that kind of stuff. But eventually, it just died out this time last year. Oh, sorry, just before Christmas, and then it began my 11-week odyssey to fix a computer. And thank you to, of all places, Harvey Norman's in Blanchardstown that had a HP Envy, HP Omen. And they're great machines. Yeah. They really are. So that's how we're able to be with you this week, because it's fixed. It's actually fixed. We managed to get the kinks worked out with the technical stuff, but as far as streaming goes,
we got the vaccine and we got that HPMV cleared right up.
Well, look, it wasn't a virus. There was no virus. It just was literally technical issues, and then waiting for two different companies to resolve to actually get me a computer that works. Because and I have to use Windows 11, so I'm using Windows 11 now, which is weird. And hopefully things are going to go well. I was streaming yesterday for 2.5 hours on the Twitch channel, playing a game called House Flipper, which is a lot of fun. I'm not going to lie. I really enjoy it. And
come here, when you're streaming for 2.5 hours playing House Flipper, do you just be cracking away, or what do you be at?
Oh, yeah, you just kind of talk as you're playing the game, you know? Like it's...
If you take your top off or something, will people throw you a $5 in the?
Well, if that works, if that works, you know, these computers don't pay for themselves, you know. But no, look, I'm just glad it all works now. It seems like we have the kinks sorted. But yeah. So the plan is, ladies and gentlemen, Friday nights we're going to be back streaming like normal. When we do kind of get a bit more of an attractive setup, we'll be there, be able to take calls as well. But this weekend, we are going to do something a little bit different. So this is actually going out in canonical order after the show we're going to do this weekend, because it's Elimination Chamber this weekend.
Yep.
Which
the Saudi Elimination Chamber.
I thought they were two different shows. And I'm like, when are they going to do that? And then I'm like, wait, no, Elimination Chamber is just in Saudi Arabia. I'm like, I mean, that makes sense, right? It's like, instead of giving them fake WrestleMania, they get like...
Yeah, well, they got... What was the last one they got?
Crown Jewel.
No, but they also got another canonical one the last time, didn't they? Did they not get money in? Maybe it wasn't Money in the Bank. Was it? I know they had the Greatest Royal Rumble.
Yes,
but I think they also gave them a proper pay-per-view. The last time.
Well, look, I think this makes way more sense for them. So we are going to either cover it. We're going to plan to cover that after the show, or we're going to cover it sometime this weekend, but it'll probably be after the show. Another thing as well, guys, I finally got around to fixing our social media. So our social media is now _ the rewind on Twitter, which you can go there, or you can go the Wrestling Rewind Show at gmail.com, the Wrestling Rewind Show on Facebook. So finally, it only took however long we've been doing this show, Martin, to actually get everything nice and consistent, but it's there.
Yeah. But it has been all Dara. I show up once a week, drink whiskey, waffle about wrestling. Dara does all the work.
I wasn't joking though with people when I'm like, send us money. I didn't have a computer. Legitimately did not have one, so my poor credit card is bleeding in a ground, going, oh my god, what's going on? But we got there and it was worth it. So we're finally able to do this wrestling thing again, which is super fun. So yeah, there will be more streams. Everything is a bit more consistent, guys. If you do want to email us, you can email the Wrestling Rewind Show at gmail.com, and we'll be able to actually do stuff that you want us to talk about. So I'm excited about that, Martin. I really am. I think it's going to be great crack. And let me turn on my little light there, and we're ready to go. All right. Sweet. So all the stuff we post is going to be up on our social medias as far as what show we're doing, and if we are going live like we are over the weekend for the Elimination Chamber, all the details will be there. So, Bassett to Beach.
New era,
exactly. New blood rising.
Oh, we're doomed already.
Oh yeah, it's already on fire.
Although we can't justifiably call ourselves the Millionaires Club, so I suppose.
No, but we have to. How old was Vampiro at this point? I think we're Vampiro's age, so it's all right.
4,000 was it? What's his
gimmick?
Kayfabe age?
Yeah, I think it was something like 4,000 or something. But hold on, like, I don't know. I think we're good. But anyway, so there's a lot to unpack on this one, right? This is the most WCW show that we've ever done.
It's the most WCW show that has ever WCW'd.
I would say that's a very true assessment, because it's not bad.
No,
I didn't think it was bad, and that's one thing straight out the bat. I found myself you enjoyed this more than the last one, which surprised me because I actually enjoyed the last one quite a lot. But I had a lot here, and I think it was they went more gimmicky, but then less gimmicky as well at some points, which really helped the show, I think. And it also had some of my favorite WCW wrestlers on the show.
Yeah, and I think the fact that I enjoyed it says a lot, because one segment in particular in this, I think, is one of the worst things to ever happen in wrestling. Yeah. So the fact that the show itself could survive that and be enjoyable, and I mean, now when we say enjoyable, I mean enjoyable in the sphere of WCW in the late 90s, early 90s.
Look, it is enjoyable. Like, I wouldn't say, it's the best thing ever, but I also wouldn't say it's the worst thing ever. It does have some of the, as you said, it does have some pretty ropey game. We'll get into it, but it has all of our favorites. It has Ralphus. It has Norman Smiley screaming. It has David Flair looking confused. Meat is there. It has all the lads.
Well, I know what the show is famous for, and I know everyone's going to want us to sit and dissect the Hogan segment and dissect the Russo segment, but I'm going to disappoint them, because all I want to talk about is the wedding gown match. That's it. 1 hour, the wedding gown match.
Listen, I think those gimmick matches are really underrated. They're a lost art, to be fair, and when they're done right, they're great, but they're very often done terrible.
When they're done wrong, they're even better.
Yeah, but I think the two people who I'd actually want to see in a match like that are Daphne and Miss Hancock.
Oh,
because their characters just work so well. Because Daphne, longtime fans of this show, when it was the International Desk or whatever, know I love Daphne. She's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, and I was devastated when she died recently, because I love Daphne. And it was great. It's great to see her here anytime she's there. But man, like, WWE dropped the ball with her by not picking her up. TNA would use her great, and they'd use her in a very similar way than they used her here. And obviously Miss Hancock with who's Stacy Keibler is great. So we'll talk about it. It's 4 minutes. Yeah, exactly. 4 minutes of absolute train wreck, but in the best way possible.
Yeah, we'll get into it. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. Right. So we are going to start from the top and then work down because there is a lot to unpack and we only have the hour here. So let's kind of give some background here. This was in July 9th, 2000. So around the time of King of the Ring 2000. So you can, this was a better show than King of the Ring 2000, which it was. I'm sorry, folks. It was. Tony Schiavone.
We discussed it last week, the world title going in a 6-way tag match.
Yeah. So I would have much rather watch this than King of the Ring, but again for many reasons. Tony Schiavone, Scott Hudson, and Mark Madden. So the Scream team return. No Mike Tenay, and Mean Gene is hanging out at the back. And I was sad by this because again, Schiavone carries this whole show on his back. Yeah. Although Mark Madden wasn't as bad as he was last time. I do have to give him that. Yeah,
I'd say someone had a word with him because he was like dreadful, not dreadful in quality, dreadful in the stuff he was saying, even by the standard of 2000 pro wrestling.
Yeah.
But you can tell that Schiavone's carrying the show because I think the cracks with him are starting to show because he comes out with some just hilarious blunders the whole way through this. But
actually, funny story. I don't know if you noticed this or not, but it looks like Twitter's finally discovered what wrestling in 2000 was. Have you seen this?
No.
So a quick aside.
Are we done? Are we shut down?
No. Well, it's coming because the whole Joe Rogan thing. People took what he said out of context, and look, we're not taking sides on that, obviously. But what I'm saying is they did a super clip of him using words and saying things, and then The Rock came out about it, and then someone did a super cut of The Rock saying horrifically offensive things from the Attitude Era out of context.
Oh, that's right. I haven't seen the Joe Rogan thing, but I've seen The Rock getting in trouble for.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, Rock, no, don't. Anyone who was in the Attitude Era, don't pick that battle because you're gonna lose.
What I would say is, if I was The Rock, I would say, my name is Dwayne Johnson, and that is a scripted character I play.
I know, man, but like the supercut is
in the same way. You could do a supercut of Quentin Tarantino in Django Unchained repeatedly saying the N-word, and you could do a supercut of it and you could say, here's a white man screaming the N-word at a black man repeatedly, and when you remove that from the context of it was a character in a film, so
but that's pretty much what they did for Joe Rogan. And I'm not a Joe Rogan fan, I don't really watch him or whatever, but that's what they did basically for him. And then The Rock came out and then they did a supercut of him, insulting loads of people across loads of spectrums, and you're like, oh. So I'm just like, King, they're coming for you.
That's what made him famous. Oh,
yeah,
King,
they're coming for you.
Well, the King is, without getting us into any legal bother, the King is fairly Teflon. If he can get away with what he has gotten away with, he's.
Well, see, I just don't think that like Twitter knew what wrestling was like in 20 years ago, and I think The Rock might be the floodgates here because again, he got famous for saying those horrific things and being that character.
And now he's known not just as like this great actor and entrepreneur and whatever else. He's known as like the nice guy of Hollywood. Like he's nice to everybody. Everybody loves him. You know, he's involved in loads of charity works and stuff. Yeah. And then you go, so genuinely, a couple of years ago, my girlfriend came downstairs during WrestleMania and The Rock was there. And she looked at it and she said, "Oh my God, did The Rock used to be a wrestler?"
Whoa.
Yeah, that was a moment. But there's like an entire generation of people who only know the actor The Rock.
That's crazy. That's so crazy for me.
They're in for a treat.
The supercut is pretty horrendous. Like It really is. And you're like, wow. And look, to be fair, I do think that's unfair because it was 20 years ago and, you know, it was a character and I don't think he genuinely meant anything he said there. But, you know, someone should know better, like The Rock. And, you know, when he went after Rogan for that, I was like, oh, you're not going to win this.
Maybe he did, but I don't think you can judge today by late 90s culture. Like, the whole thing in the culture of the late 90s was that everything was extreme.
And to shock everybody.
Everything was,
yeah.
Shocking.
There's a good video by Short Fat Taku, and he actually talks about that. It's like the culture of the time was, you know, South Park, Simpsons, all that kind of stuff, and then it kind of
Jerry
changed.
Springer.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like
Jackass. Like, this was.
Well, see, his point actually was, and I might link it in the description below because it's a good it is a good video, and he talks about it and says Jackass was kind of like the peak of it. There was three different. There was like extreme for the sake of extreme. There was extreme jokes and there was crude humor. And Jackass was kind of everything. And then it kind of petered out, which is true. Like when Jackass went away, it kind of went away. And it is funny that like 20 years later, Jackass is on WWE television, but stuff that happened on Jackass couldn't be on television because it would be kicked off instantly, you know?
And I haven't seen it, but I can guarantee you that this Jackass movie that's out, it won't be a patch on stuff that they would do just weekly on Jackass
I'd agree.
In the noughties, you know, like it'll be
I haven't
very
seen it.
correct and very.
I haven't seen it either. I don't particularly want to because it's just like, you know, I think that stuff's a time capsule of its time. Like, again, like one of the reasons, and this is a good point, one of the reasons that ECW, like when Paul Heyman brought back ECW, or didn't bring back ECW, he's like, look, we had to kind of change it. It was going to become like Ring of Honor. Even he knew he couldn't do the stuff he was doing then. You know, even in 2000, like if ECW, if you watch ECW in 2000, I remember having VHS tapes of it. It was a marked difference from ECW even in 1996.
Oh yeah, it was very much a place and time, and I think the fact that at that stage, like we obviously had, you know, early internet and recording materials and all that, but I think the fact that technology was so very quickly outpaced in the coming years means that it remained a kind of a time capsule. So it is there for anyone who cares to go and find it, but the thing is, most people don't care to go and find it. And,
you know, I think that's a right way to kind of address this, you know, but it is crazy when you see it on a show, and like we call it out because it is mad when you see it, you know, that you're like, whoa, but it is like a time capsule in and of itself. So I know I'm just excited when Twitter actually realize what how bad wrestling was, because I think it's going to be a shocking day for them because they were shocked with The Rock.
You know, I suspect a lot of people who idolize the Attitude Era and idolize the the Monday Night War era and all that, I suspect a lot of them do
don't
that.
Go back and watch it.
Yeah, I suspect they do that from a point of pure memory and pure nostalgia. I don't think any of them actually, you know, are sitting watching like the best of Nitro or the best of Raw or anything like that.
Well, look, here's the thing. You know, the matches that were on Raw were not very good. They were like 2-minute matches throwaway. You watch WCW for the long form good content. Now, by this time, by 2000, it had kind of flipped where you'd watch Raw and there would be your Chris Jericho's, your Chris Benoit's, your Dean Malenko's, your Eddie Guerrero's. They'd all be there kind of pushing forward with a more established talent from the Attitude Era, or even pushing out some of the Attitude Era talent. You see it with the hardcore division. All the workers that would do the 2-minute matches on Raw and SmackDown back in 1999 are now in the hardcore division because they're being outworked. Yeah. So, but it's funny when we're in Bash at the Beach, WCW land, it's a whole different kettle of fish. So let's kind of get into it here. So the first match, again, and we've seen this from, if this is your first show, thanks very much for joining us. Go back and have a look at some of the other stuff that we've done. And going back to 1999 even, the WCW Cruiserweight title was its own title. It was telling its story. It was really kind of out there as the main show to watch, as the main title, even below the World Belt.
And it had prestige.
Like, yes, it did. Legitimate.
It wasn't a prop. It had prestige, like it meant something. Like it was
Eddie
always
Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero and Billy Kidman were making that title mean something.
Yeah, and it was always on first match, but they always made those first 15 minutes count.
Yeah, and I think that they went away from it a bit, and now with this, it was interesting because obviously they had Lieutenant Loco defeating Juventud Guerrero in a very, very competitive match, but it was a joke. It came off as a joke, and Lieutenant Loco and is obviously Chavo Guerrero. And I don't know, there was just something off about this.
It's the filthy animals and the misfits in action.
Yes, and I think that hurt it. That really hurt it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what it was for me. So there was a couple of things here. I looked up the attendance on this show because I thought, wow, this is such a huge difference from the Great American Bash. They've packed the building out, and I don't know, maybe the building they were in previously was massive. Maybe the fact that it was so sparse and they had to cover so much of the audience in darkness made it look bigger, made it look cavernous and empty. Maybe it was the setup of the stage and all that. But as soon as this started, I saw a packed crowd, even though it was the same attendance. Like I said, maybe it's just a smaller arena. I saw the beautiful, colourful Bash at the Beach set, the colourful Bash at the Beach ring. The fireworks were great. Everyone was buzzing. And then we had this opening match, which, now, not kidding ourselves, it wasn't up to the quality of, like you say, those Eddie Guerrero, Billy Kidman, Rey Mysterio matches. It wasn't up to that quality. But this was, particularly compared to what we've seen the past couple of weeks, this was good.
Yeah.
And like you say, it wasn't a cruiserweight classic. But at the end of it, when this match was over, and with the hot crowd and with the opening, the colour of the opening segment and all, I was sitting a wee bit more optimistic, even though I know how it ends. But I was watching going, this has potential here.
See, again, like a lot of what was going on here in WCW, they were trying to course correct. It was a course correct, and it was working. But then look who you had at the top of the card, and we will get into it. But like, if taking away Misfits in Action, taking away the Filthy Animals, I think if that had just been a straight match where it was Chavo Guerrero versus Juventud Guerrero, it would have been
Chavo and the Juice.
Yeah, brilliant. It would have been great. Also, I don't appreciate Disco Inferno not being the Disco Inferno. I'm just like, come on.
What is it to call him here? The hip hop.
The hip hop. I know he's wearing a Lakers jersey.
Well, Conan comes out and Conan does his, bit of crack to the ring and all that, and then he hands the mic to Disco, and Disco goes, "Yeah, word to your mother," and it is the whitest thing I have ever heard.
It is atrocious. It is. I don't know what they were thinking, but like, again, course correct. I understand. It's Disco Inferno was better. He was over at the Disco Inferno. He's over in the Disco Inferno for the next 4 years in WWA. So come on, like,
he was. And I don't understand it, but he was.
Well, he was. And WWA will have to cover actually in future shows, because that is a weird place, man. That's a weird place that existed. So the next one was a hardcore. Look, I love hardcore matches. WCW hardcore matches have a fond place in my heart. This is not one of them.
No.
This is a far cry from Hardcore Hack and Bam Bam Bigelow.
I could tell when, because so obviously we don't follow the Nitros in between, but I could tell when he came out and the champion was Big Vito. I was like, this isn't going to be good.
No. So Big Vito defeated Norman Smiley and Ralphus in a hardcore match for the WCW Hardcore Championship. Because look, again, at this point, the golden age for the hardcore belt, the hardcore division in WWE was happening. So all the guys that could make the division good were in WWE, and it was 24/7 rule and all that kind of good stuff. Here it was kind of like, well, we have Norman Smiley, and we have Ralphus.
They were kind of caught between, or they kind of fell between two stools, because, like you say, WWE was doing the whole 24/7 thing, so it was a silly gimmick. But WCW was, on the one hand, they had wrestlers, like you say, like Smiley, who were silly gimmick wrestlers, but then they still insisted on treating the belt like a proper prestigious championship. You know, they would have their fixed matches and they would come out and defend the title. And
you know what is weird though? So the matches that we talked about with Hack and Bam Bam and Raven,
Brian Knobbs,
they were just, well, not less so Brian Knobbs, but they were matches that were just because they wanted to beat each other up. Those matches were better than the actual matches for the belt. The belt seemed to have demonstrably worse matches, which is bizarre to me.
Yeah.
I don't even think Raven held the hardcore belt in WCW.
No.
Terry Funk did.
Again, I think it's because it's kind of caught between being, on the one hand, treated as a championship title and simultaneously being treated as, you know, a silly gimmick.
And, well, the belt is horrendous. It looks manky. I'm sorry. I love wrestling belts, but this is not one of them. This is, it's terrible. It's actually, if you Google it, there's some good fan designs, which are actually pretty cool. There's one there from 2016. It actually looks pretty nice. But
what's your favorite belt at the moment?
Oh, it's one of the AW ones. Has to be.
I think their tag title is just the most. I would have it up there with the Winged Eagle as one of the most beautiful belts.
A splash of color on the belts is always a good thing, I think. You know, like.
Yeah. I think what makes it for me is the fact that even though you only see glimpses of it, the inside of it appears to be some sort of snake skin.
Oh, that's nice.
It's class.
So look, not a great filler match, but the next one definitely made up for it.
And I'll tell you what, just before we get on to the next one, Ralphus, he is either the greatest actor in the world, or he is a man who does not know what he's meant to be doing and who is being physically assaulted, because I can see that he's meant to be like a comedic character. You're meant to laugh. But honest to God, when I see him out there running around with his belly hanging out and the big sad look on his face and I'm getting his head kicked in, I just feel sad.
But that's Ralphus for you. That's what he does. That's what he's always done. With Jericho, he didn't have to do it because Jericho will protect him. But now he's just there.
Yeah, because it was funny when he was with Jericho. But this, I don't know, this just made me sad.
Yeah, no, it was. And again, we will track this. I've yet to see a good hardcore match in WCW for the hardcore belt.
Yeah,
I've yet to see it.
And none of them ones we watched with Bam Bam or any of that, none of them were for the belt.
No, they were just because. Just go out there and kill each other. Why? Oh, just cause.
Yeah, I suppose it makes more sense. Here, what was the big car park brawl or the junkyard brawl with the cars like piled all around the thing? Was that for a title?
If it had Terry Funk in it, yes. If it didn't, no.
No, it didn't have Terry Funk in it.
Then it was just random.
No, do you know what it was? They had some ridiculous trophy made out of like
a trophy. It was
junkyard parts, and that's what that was. Yeah, never mind.
Right, so the next one is a wedding gown match with Daphne against Miss Hancock with David Flair.
And Crowbar, this is what we will be sticking to for the remainder of the show, folks.
And you know what? We easily could. It's one of those. Oh yeah, look, it's WCW at its best. It really is. Yeah. But this had a lot of build up to it in between the Nitros, which obviously we didn't see. So there was a lot going on here. I think David Flair, while he was terrible, I think this is the best use of David Flair.
Yeah.
And
well, it's only,
it made some sort of sense at least.
Well, it's only deepened my conviction that this man has in fact targeted me and is taunting me from beyond the grave, because like we said last week, he came out head to toe in Union Jacks, and this week he came out with his arm around the object of my adolescent desires, Miss Hancock. shifting the face off her.
Yep.
And it just is like, this fella knows every bloody button to push.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Yeah.
So just Miss Hancock was my, like, from about 14 till about 17. Miss Hancock was my idea of just a perfect woman.
Well, look, she might have been, but she was not a good wrestler.
No.
Daphne, however, was a good wrestler, but not at this point. So, interesting fact. Both Daphne and Keibler were products of the WCW power plant, and that would be the extent of Stacy Keibler's training. Daphne would then go and get more training afterwards, and obviously end up doing what she would do in TNA and elsewhere. Right. The match came about after Hancock stole Daphne's fiance David Flair away from her. So not only did David Flair get with Daphne, but also with Stacy Keibler. What a lucky man.
I don't buy it.
I don't buy it either. But so this is a match, like, this is basically a tuxedo match, an evening gown match, but with a wedding gown being a loose term for what this was. These were just basically sexy costumes.
Daphne was taking no chances though. Daphne had a shoulder to ankle full skin colored bodysuit on underneath her.
It made more sense. It made more sense.
It made me think that she was going to be the one to lose then, because she was like prepped
covered up. Yeah, well, it goes along with her character where she was more, conservative is the wrong word, but I'll use it anyway. More conservative with that kind of, not wanting to be embarrassed in that way. Now, this eventually would build up to a Stacy Keibler, David Flair wedding, like an actual wedding on the show. At the end of the year, so we'll probably end up covering that. And boy, that's a segment. Wrestling weddings they're never good. I'm sorry, I never think they're good. But this was a very entertaining match in and of itself. So where do we start? Crowbar was just kind of there. I felt bad for Crowbar. He was like the odd man out with the spare wheel. But I'll give you the floor, Martin, so you can set the scene for anyone listening or watching.
So I'm at a loss with this. I genuinely can't tell whether I loved or loathed this. It was pantomime. It was theatrics. It was bawdy 1950s carry-on humor. It was everything but wrestling. At one stage, the referee is trying to separate the two women, and Stacy Keibler rips his trousers, and his trousers just come off. The referee's there in his pants. And then Daphne whips David Flair's trousers off, and then he's there in his pants. And then Crowbar comes running in and backdrops David Flair for no reason. I don't know what Crowbar's tie-in with it was. But he gets into the ring and he sees everybody else is having a no-pants party, and he's not going to be the only one left out. So he whips off his own trousers. And the match only escalates from there. He whips his jeans round David Flair, drags him into the corner. Stacy Keibler, or was it Daphne? No, Daphne produces a buzzer, like a hair trimming thing.
David Flair brought it to the ring, Will.
David Flair brought it. And then Stacy Keibler gets in the ring, grabs a microphone, says, "I know what you're all here to see," and takes her dress off. So she loses.
Yeah, made no sense.
It reminded me of, was it the Macho Man climbed up the top turnbuckle and put himself out of the Rumble?
Yep.
By jumping to the outside. And then, because it's a wedding gown match, there's a huge cake by ringside. The whole thing descends into a high school movie food fight.
4 minutes of time, which is...
4 minutes.
To be fair, now we've watched matches that have gone on for 20 minutes and not as much happened, so I do have to give them credit. This is probably and I'm not joking, this is the single best thing that David Flair has been involved in WCW. Maybe in his career.
There's a terrific part in it where I think it's Stacy Keibler is in her wee, I mean, it's a very short skirt she's wearing.
Yeah.
And David Flair has had his trousers pulled off, and he runs after her, and she runs away, and they do like a circle of the ring. And while that was going on, all I could hear in my head was it was just.
But look, you know, I will defend this rather than a straight wrestling match, because neither one of them at the time could actually like do that. You know.
Oh yeah.
It got them both over quite a lot by, you know, leaning into the, you know, that they're both very attractive women at this point. And obviously David Flair can't wrestle. He just can't do it. So it did kind of build over, and this character again would lead in for the next couple of months. I think it runs out in either November, and I think it's September. It runs out eventually. But it was one of the strong stories, one of the strong characters that you can actually lean into and go, this makes sense.
Yeah, I would stress I'm not with that kind of breathless, flabbergasted rundown. I'm not criticizing this. I think this was WCW in the noughties. It was never not entertaining.
Yeah, that's true.
That about it. It was either, I mean, depending on how you look at it, you could see it as a full frontal assault on feminism, or you could see it as a kind of a modern art masterpiece. You know.
Well, look, you know, if I would say, right, and again, both companies did this at the time. I would say there's more agency here with the women, I think, with this in a weird way, because in WWE, okay, yeah, look, they're still fighting over a man, but David Flair use that term very loosely. He looks like a young fella just lost at a concert, like on the way to a concert. I would say the women here have more agency, and they're actually doing a lot more. There's a lot more going on, except for Crowbar. The only person who comes out here really badly is Crowbar. He's just kind of there. It's like, oh man, you're a total afterthought. You're a total rebound.
Well, I tell you, we're 3 minutes into we're 3 matches into a 2000s WCW pay-per-view, and I was sitting on the couch with a smile on my face.
Yeah, and that's it. And look, and that's what you want.
Yeah.
So
look, I had yet to be checking my phone or seeing what was on next.
Well, the next match was a 13 minutes. No.
It was. Well, okay, but I tell you what. Before we get into it,
yeah, go on.
What I thought was fantastic was before the next match started, they cut to the commentary desk, and obviously they were talking about, I can't believe what we've just seen.
Yeah.
But you could see the camera, the way it was angled, you could see that they'd obviously sent the crew down to clean up all the wedding cake that had been thrown everywhere. And it just says everything about WCW in 2000, that they knew there was going to be a segment where a giant wedding cake was going to be destroyed, and they knew they were going to have to clean it up and send the crew down. And they gave them no tools. The guys were down there with T-shirts in their hands, scraping the cake off the mat with bundled up T-shirts. And I was just, WCW.
Well, look, you know, they only had so much. You probably had loads of that David Flair merch that you just wasn't shifting.
Yeah.
Better use it in some way. So the next match, Chronic defeated the Perfect Event, Meat, and Chuck Palumbo, a tag team which didn't exist for very long, less than a year. Sean Stasiak, terrible. Chuck Palumbo, terrible.
Kind of like the gimmick though. Like they were deliberately ripping off Mr. Perfect and Lex Luger.
Well, this comes back from Stasiak literally ripping off Kirk Hennig. That was like the gimmick which we've seen. So yeah, I suppose it makes sense, but I just never bought Sean Stasiak in anything, you know, that I see him in. It's like X-Pac go away, you know, where I'm like,
yeah.
And I don't know if it's because like he made Kurt Angle look so bad in Kurt Angle's debut, and it always stuck with me where I'm like, how do you make, like, again, look, when I was I didn't realize Kurt Angle was who he was when I first saw him, but now in hindsight, or even 4 or 5 years later when Kurt Angle really became Kurt Angle, you know, you're like, how did he make Kurt Angle look bad? You know,
Yeah.
it's like, geez. And then when you're watching WCW shows, you're like, that's why, because you're atrocious. But Chronic grew on me here. I thought they actually worked really well as a team. Actually, both teams worked quite well as a team. It was a very good tag team match. It was about 14 minutes. It was fun.
The only problem with this match was that it was too long.
Yeah, it could have been half. It could have been 7 minutes.
Yeah.
A nice tight 7 minutes would have been it.
This would have been a good match. 7 minutes is, like you say, none of the guys in the ring are great wrestlers, but like Chronic are big, imposing guys.
They're a good team.
They're a good team.
Yeah.
And while maybe they're not like the greatest technical wrestlers, like they can move. For big guys, they can move. You know, they're capable of punch kick, and pull off a pretty impressive spot. And then, like I say, the Perfect Event are hit and miss, but 7 minutes they could have made something really good out of this.
I agree. Match of the night probably is up next. Chris Kanyon and Booker T put on a hell of a clinic in 10 minutes.
Positively Kanyon.
Positive, well, that's it. Like, again,
that gimmick.
We wanted Chris Kanyon for a while to come out and just be able to just be able to work, not on a wheelchair, not hampered by someone else. And he went out there with Booker T, and these guys had great chemistry. It was just a singles match. It was throwaway, but it was really good.
Yeah, good to see Booker T back, and not, what was he, Sergeant Awesome or whatever name they had him in Great American Bash.
Again, it's weird how quickly the gimmicks change.
Yeah.
Like within like 2 weeks, they're completely different characters. It's like, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, look, I thought they had maybe it wasn't like a top level pay-per-view match, but I thought they had a really good, what would have been a good Nitro match. And then, as is always the case, WCW got in its own way with the Jarrett interference and the ending at the end. And I loved Canyon's gimmick with the book. And he had the brick in the book, and he's looking for his brick, and it just made me think of Father Jack and I love my brick.
But look, I think this was the right thing to do. It gave these guys 10 minutes to really kind of showcase what they could do. It would set up Booker T's ascension, because he would start going towards the world title very, very soon.
Very soon. Within the next hour. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, like this. But this is why, he wasn't supposed to be there. He was supposed to be within a couple of months. This was planting the seeds. It just happens that they had to jump ahead a little bit. Mike Awesome defeated Scott Steiner for the US title.
Now,
great
just before this match, Jeff Jarrett has been walking around in these skits with a large woman, a large opera singer,
right?
And looking for Hogan, and I assume it's hey Hogan, the fat lady's about to sing, or whatever.
Yeah.
But just before this match, Mike Awesome is seen chatting her up, and one of the backstage interviewers, really 20s, hot, big boobs out, comes over to interview him, and he's like shoving her aside so he can talk to the opera singer. And I think this is really sad, because Mike Awesome was such an awesome wrestler. I think this is the genesis of the legend of the fat chick thriller.
Yeah, no, it was, yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah, no, it's a shame, because he goes in and have like the matches that Steiner and Awesome had throughout 2000s are actually like probably some of the best stuff you'll see in WCW at this time.
Great.
It's great. No, but on Nitro and Thunder, they're like the matches that people hold up as the matches to watch. And it's very rare you'd get to see them because of all the BS that would go on, and then particularly when they gave Awesome that gimmick, it made people want to watch it less. So you'd only see them on throwaway matches on TV. You wouldn't really see them on pay-per-views. So I think this is a rarity that we actually have this.
Here's what I don't know. So these two things happened because it was great. Well, it wasn't a very long match, but it was a great match. Again, up until the end when WCW got in its own way.
Disqualifications, yeah.
I don't understand how within 10 minutes the people running WCW saw two things. They saw Mike Awesome talking to a large woman, and then they saw Mike Awesome and Scott Steiner batter the living hell out of each other through the crowd, out the back through the crowd, back into the ring, kick the living hell out of each other. And they saw those two things side by side, and they said to themselves, the Fat Chick Thriller. That's what we need.
Well, they were. Like, here's the thing: they weren't watching the matches; they were just listening to whatever Hogan or whoever was booking this wanted. And that was it, you know. And you'll see it. Like, look again, Daphne and Miss Hancock going in and having that match. They had that match because they had nothing else for them to do, and nobody paid attention. So they're like, go out and do your own thing. It's a killer. It's a killer. Like when the attention was on them, that's when the wheels came off. And this is a case in point where it's like Mike Awesome just with Scott Steiner can go out and had some of the best matches of the latter WCW because nobody was over them. But the minute they had the spotlight on them, they were hampered by a gimmick, by poor booking, by BS, and that's what kind of happened here.
Even this match was good in spite of WCW.
I agree.
So they went hell for leather at each other. There's a brilliant bit in it towards the end where the two of them are outside the ring, and the referee is not distracted. He's not anything. He's looking right at them.
Yeah.
And Mike Awesome lifts a chair and he wails on Scott Steiner with it. Like he's absolutely laying into him with the chair. And Tony Schiavone goes, it's great the referees are relaxing the rules this evening because this right here, this could very easily be a count out. A count out while he's bludgeoning this fellow with the chair.
This could be robbery. He's like killing someone.
This could very easily be, aggravated assault. And then the match ends. Not only does the match end on a disqualification, despite the fact it was a legal move, but the title somehow changes hands on a disqualification.
Well, in WCW, they don't say a title doesn't change hands on a qualification. That's a WWE rule. And an AEW rule. And a common sense rule. But in WCW, it's a little bit looser.
Is it? Is this the only time I've ever seen this?
Well, it happened in TNA as well. It's a Vince Russo rule where they booked themselves into a corner and had to get out of it.
God, Russo.
But what usually happens then is sometimes it's overturned as well. It used to happen in TNA a lot. But that's a whole other kettle of fish. So look.
Well, I tell you what, it really put a dampener on two guys who went out. And look, nobody's going to say Scott Steiner's the greatest wrestler in the world. But when you have two guys who are into it and who have passion and, they really give it, they really lay into each other. This was a great match. And again, WCW getting in their own way.
Again, it's shameful, it's annoying, it's all the above. Really is. It really is. The next match up though is what's known as the worst of the worst for many reasons. It is Vampiro versus the Kiss Demon, yes, the band.
So I think this was just after he had lost the Kiss endorsement, so he was now the demon, and then sometimes they'd say his real name.
So I'm gonna read from the wrestling section.blogspot.com. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you a story about the Kiss Demon. Back in 2000, WCW struck a deal with one of the most overrated bands in history, Kiss. True. The deal was to create a Kiss team wrestler modeled after Gene Simmons with a guaranteed main event after going back and forward with the character unlucky WCW power plant student Dale Tonberg donned the paint, and Brian Adams rejected the gimmick after using it twice. The Kiss Demon was introduced during a Kiss Live concert on Nitro, True, the lowest rated segment in Nitro history, and was pretty much dead on arrival. Also cost something like $2 million, I believe.
Yes.
So, yeah, and this apparently was also during the Super Brawl against the Wall. That's when he main evented, which is true, which we haven't actually looked at.
Well, there's actually kind of a parallel between that and this, because that was the main event, but it was the fourth match on the card. And the main event on this show was announced with 2 matches to go after it.
So it would eventually spawn this match, which is a graveyard match. For all intents and purposes, imagine the Boneyard match, but terrible.
Well, there you go. That was my first reaction to this was, what on earth's a graveyard? Because WWE have shown us that the place where you bury people is called a boneyard.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what this was. And you know what? Maybe that's why they did it.
Yeah, well, I mean,
maybe that's why they did it. They didn't want it to be associated. Because if you Google graveyard match, you're not going to get anything good.
Did Taker and Jake the Snake, or Jake the Snake and the Ultimate Warrior, did they have a good one? I can't imagine the Ultimate Warrior ever had a good anything.
So actually, I stand corrected. When you Google graveyard match, you do actually get AJ Styles versus The Undertaker.
Ah!
So it went against them.
That was clearly a boneyard.
Clearly a boneyard. How dare you, Google? How dare you? This is why you should use Brave and DuckDuckGo, ladies and gentlemen. But man, look, in a word, actually, we have 10 minutes left, so we might have to go into overtime here. In a word, what did you think of this match? And does it live up to its look, it's pretty bad. It's 8 minutes. I don't like Vampiro, the Demon. This thing was doomed from the start. What do you think about it?
I tell you what, I love the beginning where the Demon is walking around the graveyard and he can't find Vampiro anywhere. And the next thing, he looks up in a tree and all you could hear is Tony Schiavone going, "He's in the trees!" Man just jumps out of the tree.
Oh, lad.
It was dreadful. Obviously, there was no crowd noises or anything. So they did the Roman Reigns thing and they just monologued their way. "Hey, you think you can do this? I'm gonna punch you." And then it ended with Vampiro putting the Demon in a coffin and then tipping the coffin into a grave. Now, I mean, I'm sure that's not a pleasant experience, but the way Tony sold it, like, he tipped the coffin and it fell 3 or 4 feet. The way Tony sold it, you'd swear the Demon was dead. Although, I suppose he certainly was buried.
He did try to kill him. He smashed a tombstone over his head and it broke into a million pieces.
It did. Although that tombstone was kind of falling apart in Vampiro's hands while he was holding it.
Tombstone's a very strong word for what it was. Look, it was one. I mean, there was
pioneering.
It was, and I was going to say that there was nothing like this before in WWF or WCW or ECW or anywhere else. It was the first of its kind. Does that make it good? No.
Certainly not.
No. Could this have been good? Well, look, we saw last week with a Human Torch match, which also wasn't very good. I think if you had booked this a little bit better, yes, it could have been good. And it was. Look, the Boneyard match is case in point that this could be done better.
Stunt the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Have your coffins, have your graves, have your headstones that smash, have a bloody hearse. Like, just make this a 5-minute stunt fest.
Yeah.
And then cut it. It does not need to be a wrestling match.
Now, what they're finding a list, man, a list of the best to worst matches, and there's some good ones that I do want to work through myself. I'm gonna post them up on our social media, and we have to cover these. There's some really good ones here. There's 100 matches, or 97 matches. I'm gonna post these on our social media, and you guys can have a look. Because fair play to CJ Biddle, because this is a good list they've compiled, and it's going to go on our social media. So we're going to have to end it here. If you're checking us out on Phoenix 92.5 FM, of course, you can check us out on thewrestlingrewind.com _ the Wrestling Rewind on Twitter, the Wrestling Rewind Show at gmail.com. And that's where you can find everything that we're going to do. We're going to continue on the stream, of course, if you're checking us out on the stream, thank you so much. Just hang on. But Martin, is there anything you want to say to the people listening on Phoenix FM before we get out here?
Yeah, I mean, I know this is recorded, so I don't know when it's going out, but it's Storm Eunice is coming in, so whatever you're doing, folks, don't take unnecessary journeys and don't swim in the sea.
There you go. Fair point. And don't wrestle in a graveyard. Don't wrestle in a graveyard. No good things happen there.
Or
but folks,
a boneyard.
Or a boneyard, unless you're the Undertaker. So look, folks, we will be back here on Phoenix 92.5 FM next week. Of course, you can check us out. Please go over to thewrestlingrewind.com where all the links for everything are found. And we will talk to you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.
You have nothing else to do on a Saturday? Do you like nerd things? Now check out Nerd to Know Basis here on Phoenix 92.5 FM, 5pm to 6pm, and then head over to nerdtoknowmedia.com for all of our shows as part of the Nerd to Know Media radio network.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.
Alright, so I haven't worked out how to do ads yet on the stream, so we're going to keep going here on the channel, folks.
We have advertisers.
Well, I have a little button that I press when we do streams, but obviously because I'm using a new computer, brand new setup, we're still working out the kinks, so I haven't actually.
I mean, we're a wrestling podcast, so I think are we legally entitled to advertise Blue Chew at some point?
I hope so.
Yeah, I think.
I hope so.
Everywhere else seems to do it.
Yeah, or Audible.
Yeah, or Audible. Yeah, but 20% of listening to wrestling podcast is listening to advertisements for Blue Chew.
Yeah. Well, look, we'll see. But I haven't worked out how to do that just yet. So hopefully by tomorrow I will, or whenever we do. Again, guys, we're actually taping this out of order. So we're doing show 90 before 89, because 89 is the Elimination Chamber. And so again, if this is your first show, thanks so much for checking us out. We are live every single Friday, 10:30 Irish time, and then it goes out on Phoenix 92.5 FM, 8 p.m. Irish time. So the best way to stay in contact with us is our social media, and of course you can do all that through thewrestlingrewind.com. So Martin, we are going to switch gears here and briefly go over Shane Douglas versus Buff Bagwell. This was a weird match because this was like a filler match to kind of set up why everybody's listening to the show, the actual talking point. But this was a shame because I liked both Shane Douglas and Buff Bagwell at this time. I thought they could have been used better and weren't. And this was a really weird. This is a match where like we haven't got enough time here. Go out there and do something, because there was some setup on Nitro and Thunder, but it didn't seem like it warranted a pay-per-view match.
Yeah, I'm the same with you here. I don't dislike either of these guys, but even without having followed the weekly show, I could tell as soon as this started, this was filler. Yeah. This was nothing. Nobody cared about this. The two guys came out and they had a perfectly
serviceable
television wrestling match.
Yeah.
And then obviously we had to have the WCW double twist, with Tori Wilson betraying the franchise and then betraying Buff Bagwell. It's just nobody really cared.
Yeah, no, at this point they were very much into just what they were into, and it was just get through this, fill up about 10 minutes, and then reset for Hogan Jarrett. Yeah.
I'll tell you what I did enjoy was, though, the match ended with so Shane Douglas caught, I think Tori Wilson did a low blow on Buff Bagwell, and then Shane Douglas caught Buff Bagwell with this move. And Tony Schiavone goes, "Oh my God, what a move. We've never seen anything like that." And what it was he just botched a Manhattan drop. That was it. And I've never seen a move end on a Manhattan drop either. That was fantastic.
That was it.
But yeah, that was the only notable thing about it. Oh, what I would say is I've always loved the name Manhattan Drop because it's the reverse of the Atomic Drop.
Yeah, that's clever.
Manhattan was the Manhattan Project, so yeah.
It's very
I
clever.
always thought that was nearly too clever for wrestling.
Hey, look, so they have their moments, but as clever as that was, what happened from this point on was not. So this is the most famous moment of ladder WCW. Well, without question, to be fair, there's like 5 big moments of ladder WCW. This is one of them, and this is the moment that WCW died.
Yeah.
Died of death.
100%.
It's the moment it died of death. And the reason why I said it is because, again, this whole show, the past 2 or 3 shows even, was an attempt to reset, get themselves back on track, and they were doing it. Hogan, in one moment, killed the whole show. And the blame for this, it can be doled out in many places. I think Hogan and Russo are to blame for this wholeheartedly. And so
50-50. I wouldn't put the entirety of it, but I mean, it's 2 shoot heels. So this background comes from alternativeminds.com. So what led to the incident? Vince Russo returned to WCW in June 2000 after taking a brief hiatus. At this point, WCW was already in its worst year, and the damage to the company left everyone uncertain. Vince Russo wanted to push younger talent and had not had the chance to give the main event status. He began a few months earlier to push Jeff Jarrett to win the WCW title, which he did. There was no problem with Russo doing this, as the majority of fans wanted talent that had already become main eventers, and some talent that had already left WCW for WWE at this point. So you can see what he was doing. He wanted to make sure that more talent didn't leave to go to WWE, which of course Jericho, Benoit, the names go on that we bring up every week, had done. The only thing that was preventing this was big name talent such as Hulk Hogan, Sid Vicious, and Kevin Nash, who were still in the main event scene and did not want to lose their spot. The week of the show, John Laurinaitis, yes, that John Laurinaitis, had a meeting with Hulk Hogan. John told Hogan that Russo wanted to lose the WCW champion to Jeff Jarrett at the show. Hogan did not like the idea, called Eric Bischoff to talk to Russo about another idea for the match. The plan was then purposely for Hogan to win the title, leave WCW with the championship, have Vince Russo set up another tournament to crown a new champion, and then have Hulk Hogan return at a later date as the real champion, similar to how CM Punk and John Cena would do many years later during the Summer of Punk. Hogan as the real champion versus the current champion to have been booked for Fall Brawl or Halloween Havoc. Vince Russo did not like the idea, but due to Hogan having creative control in his clause, Hogan figured that Russo would not change the plan. Russo stated on kayfabe commentaries that his plan the entire time was Hogan not to leave at the belt, but Booker T was. So apparently up until 2 hours beforehand, Eric Bischoff talked to Vince Russo the moment before he arrived, told Russo Bischoff told Russo to talk to Hogan about the match. Hogan told Russo that he should win the belt and again needed it, or else he will not work the show in protest. Hogan then asked Russo that would not happen, and if it was real, to beat Jarrett in the ring. Vince Russo then told Hogan that if it was real, he would not go out and cut a promo towards Hogan. Vince Russo then pitched Booker T versus Hogan for both WCW championships down the line. Hogan liked the idea, and that's apparently what did happen, but not in the way they expected. So, to sum up, they had agreed that this is the way it was going to happen, but the wording was wrong, and then eventually led to the you-know-what hitting the fan. So, Hollywood Hulk Hogan comes out. Jeff Jarrett comes out. This is a singles match for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. The entrances were longer than the match. The match was 1 minute 20 seconds. Michael Buffer got his $100,000 for saying, "Let's get ready to rumble."
Yep. And Jeff Jarrett lays down and takes the pin.
Yeah.
And that's that.
That's what this was so the whole politics of this case, as far as I know, this wasn't even really the problem. It was after the next match when Russo came back out and did his big spiel. That was the issue that Hogan really had. In fact, I think because of the diatribe Russo unleashed in that promo, Hogan actually initiated a defamation of character lawsuit against WCW.
Yeah. But here's the thing. The reason why this is so damaging, when I say the match, like literally Jeff Jarrett lies down.
Yeah.
He lies down.
Well, so that's partly what's damaging.
No, and the reason why it's so bad, is because it's not like he was screwed over. It's not like he was attacked. It's not like the fans were told what was going on. Vince Russo's out there, all right, holding the belt and showing the belt to Hulk Hogan. But it just shows that, right, we know Vince Russo's booking this. We know this is a fake show. And
this it's real but not real, but this bit's real stuff. This is for what they used to call the smart marks. This is essentially this is where they jumped the smart. This went beyond what. So when you watch wrestling, you put it out of your mind that it's not real. You have I think what they call a suspension of disbelief, and this went beyond that, and it made it very obvious what you were watching. And what really didn't help was the commentary, the constant, oh my God, this is real, folks, like you're watching at home, and this is real life, this is shoot, this is happening. And it's like, that doesn't make this bit sound real. That just makes it sound like everything else you've been watching up to now has been phony. Like, we know what it is, but for the 3 hours that you're sitting watching, or the 2 hours that you're sitting watching wrestling, you suspend your disbelief.
But apparently everything that happened up until the moment that Jarrett laid down was part of the plan.
Yeah.
Everything. The moment he laid down, that's when it went off the rails.
But this is Russo's booking. This is classic Russo, that he's constantly doing this, a peek behind the curtain booking, or the real backstage politics booking, and all that stuff is fascinating in 99, 2000 for people on message boards. But for people who have either paid to go to or paid to watch pay-per-view, this is not entertaining. Shout
out to Mr. _Tiny Corndog for comments in the chat. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. But yeah,
no doubt your corn dog is huge, Mr. Corn Dog.
Well, we appreciate you joining us. What did you think of the Vince Russo booking? I know everyone has the opinion on Vince Russo, so let us know. We appreciate it. But yeah, man, like as I said, everything about this was part of the plan. It was all supposed to be done. It was decided before, and then Jeff Jarrett lays down, and that's it. So there's a promo cut by Hogan. And he leaves. And then later on, there's another promo by Vince Russo, who basically explains that wrestling isn't real. And that Hogan has ruined the show, basically. And he's going to rebook the show to give Booker T basically the rub here. And it would be Jeff Jarrett as the champion. So that belt would be taken away, given to Jeff Jarrett, and it'd be Jeff Jarrett versus Booker T later on in the night for the actual WCW championship.
Well, one of the issues I had with this, I mean, we only have so much time. I have a laundry list of issues with this, but one of the things that got me was that this was played very much as a shoot. This was Hogan's gone. That title is done. We're going to have a new title, blah, blah, blah. And then there's actually a shot later on where Vampiro was coming back into the building, and you can see Hogan walking out the door with the title. Yeah. But then on the match at the end of the night, like 15 minutes later, they have the title. They have the title there to present to Booker T.
Makes no sense.
Yeah, either they went and got it back, or they had a mimic made in 15 minutes, or the whole thing with this is the lack of consistency is very galling. Like it constantly pulls you out of that suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, and there was Goldberg who defeated Kevin Nash, and Kevin Nash lost the match. Scott Hall's contract will be terminated. This is very much an afterthought. Even on the show, they don't really talk about it that much because they're still trying to get over what just happened, and it does kind of put a whole dampener on the whole show, because you're like, right, nothing else here mattered. You've said nothing else here mattered because it wasn't real. The only real thing that happened was Hogan walking out with the belt.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, this is real, folks. This is really happening. And now let's all get hyped up for the next fake thing.
So obviously this was a lot of heat backstage. After winning the title, Hogan immediately took the belt off, so he was gone. But as you said, he wasn't really gone. And then basically from Russo's comments, both on the show and after the show, it would be a defamation of character lawsuit against Vince Russo and Time Warner. And also it's the last time that Hogan would actually be on WCW.
And here, for all we can say about Hogan, you can't say he's not prescient. His last words ever in WCW were, "Is this your deal, Russo? This is why this company's in the state it's in." Yeah. And I have to 100% concur.
It's funny. So Vince Russo and has been involved with a lot. And Hogan, the moment that killed TNA is very similar to this moment. When you actually look at it, and it both involved Hulk Hogan and nonsense booking. So, I would say it's weird that in 15 years he managed to do the same thing twice.
People who like wrestling. Give them wrestling. You don't need to give them the whole smarky behind the scenes. Oh, but this is the real story. Like, people just like wrestling. Just give them bloody wrestling.
Well, look, what we got on this show that was wrestling was actually really good. I would say, the Daphne stuff was really good. A very good tag team match, which was very surprising. Awesome Mike Awesome match. Canyon versus Booker T. Again, Booker T, he went out and wrestled 23 minutes of actually quite good content. The Booker T Jeff Jarrett match itself was quite good, but no one cared because they were like, well, this doesn't really matter. So it's a shame because both those lads went out and actually did a good match.
Yeah. What I would say was, I think by the end of the Booker T match, Booker T's second match, they had gotten the crowd back a bit, and him winning the title did have a genuine kind of feel good moment about it. It wasn't as momentous as it should have been, but it did have a genuine kind of feel good moment about it. So despite all the nonsense, the pay-per-view kind of did go off on a wee bit of a high, despite everybody being completely confused.
So what would you give this show? So I think the best way to do is let's take out the moment. Let's just park it and go, right, the moment was what it was. What would you give the show overall?
I'd give that a solid WCW C+.
Fair. I think that's very fair. I think it's very fair. It wasn't as crazy as the last show, and I think that kind of worked. And as I said, it still had the gimmick matches and really leaned into them, but used them a lot better. I think if the WCW nonsense with Hogan hadn't have happened, this probably could have been a turning point for the company, and it was just the other way. Yeah. And it never really recovered. This was probably the last chance for them to really recover, and I feel bad because it did so much well. It did more things in a true way. It did more things well than poorly, but the poor ones overshadowed the good, and that's why I can't give it more than a C+ because it's let down by graveyard matches. It's let down by nonsense. It's a shame. It's a shame, but yes,
it's like I say, they did seem to like I said right at the start of this. The thing opened. The crowd was hot. The fireworks, the set, everything was great. The first match was good. It's like it really did feel like almost like they were within touching distance of 96, 97 WCW again.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it did, and I think that's the sad part about it. As I said, this is the death of WCW in a lot of ways, where it doesn't really recover from here. Next on our timeline is New Blood Rising. Holy hell, folks, strap in. That's a thing. But of course, that's next on our timeline. Our next show, if you're checking this out as we're recording them, is going to be Elimination Chamber. But if you haven't checked it out, it's the show we've already done. So thank you for everyone who joined us live. Thank you for everyone who listened as well. Again, thank you to people in the chat. We appreciate it. We will be back every Friday at 10:30. And the best way to keep in contact with us is our social media. So if you're on social media, we have a link for you. We will throw them up as well. TheWrestlingRewind.com will take you to our website, which has all the links there. Underscore the Rewind is Twitter, and The Wrestling Rewind Show at gmail.com. The Wrestling Rewind Show on Facebook. So Martin, is there anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Just good to be back, although I've never really been on the streaming in the first place, but it's good to be here, and long may it continue.
Absolutely. So guys, thanks so much for sticking with us. We'll be back next week, and again, this is your first time checking us out, like the show, subscribe. There's plenty more content here from the Wrestling Rewind. Bye guys.
Fight me, punk.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.